really hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, like, and click the bell to be notified of more fantastic music content just like this. Welcome to the Need to Know Music Show with me, Ronan McManus, here on Switchbox TV. And today I'm joined by a singer-songwriter from Nashville, based in Nashville, Ron Pope. How are you doing?
I'm still alive, so I feel like I'm winning so far.
Yeah, it's a bit, that's kind of been it's about as high as the bar goes in 2020, isn't it? It's just like kind of, it's set a very low bar. I'm still alive, and anything above that is a bonus. So
yeah, exactly. We're definitely we're in extra time now. So
yeah. So what's the year been like for you? Obviously it's been a bit crap for everybody. No or very few live gigs going on. But where have you been spending it all in Nashville? What have you been doing? How have you been spending your 2020?
Well, I went on tour at the very, very beginning of the year in the U.S. So I did all of the U.S. pretty much in January and into the very beginning of February. And then I had a break, and I was gonna do press in the States and then go to Europe and tour there. And so that was when kind of everything happened here. Like in rapid succession, we had a tornado in Nashville.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yes, we had
Crazy.
a tornado. And so we were out, helping in the community, helping our neighbors and helping with the cleanup for a while. And then that just kind of rolled right into the pandemic. And she, and so after that, we just kind of, we've been home. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. And so I've been hanging out with her a lot. We've gone on a lot of really epic walks. Like in the beginning, because you can't keep a 2-year-old in the house all day. Like they would explode. Yeah. And so in the beginning, I'd put her in a stroller and we would go out and walk like 15 miles every day. Like we would just go and I'd take her to feed the ducks and walk over here and walk over there, different places every day just to keep her entertained. So I did that for a long time. And now I'm writing songs. I started doing online performances very regularly at some point. Like in the beginning, one of my friends was, just kind of offhandedly said, "Oh, you should go on the internet, play some songs that'll make people happy." And then it became this regular thing that we were doing at least once a week for a long time. I think we did maybe like 35 of them or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And we started like a series. We called it Live and in Sweatpants, and because I'm always wearing pajamas and stuff now. Because where am I? I'm not going anywhere.
I'm wearing slippers. I'm wearing slippers right now. This is fine.
I put on jeans the other day. It felt like I was getting dressed to go to the prom. It was ridiculous. I was like, "Look at me in my fancy pants."
Any pants are fancy pants at this stage.
Exactly. And so kind of doing that and connecting with the fans very regularly while they were at home, it really inspired us to start releasing a lot of material. I put out a record in March, and so normally we wouldn't have been releasing more stuff already, but we started putting out a song every other week in July, and so we've been doing that.
What I noticed was you had an album in March, and then from July the 23rd through December the 3rd, you released 11 singles.
Yes.
And none of them were from the album.
No. We
it's just like, that's really unorthodox. There's the album, and then we're gonna have a load of more. Were they all new songs?
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, some of the recordings that we're putting out now are live recordings. Of me playing with the band. So some of them are songs that previously released songs. They're different iterations of them, but most of the songs so far, I believe, are either new songs, or I did a cover of Joni Mitchell's "River," which is kind of a Christmas song.
It's basically it's the coolest Christmas song that isn't specifically really about isn't a Christmas sort of carol or whatever. It's not like it's but it's the coolest one. I think it's just a beautiful song, and it's a lovely version you do.
Oh, thank you. And so basically the plan, what we realized was, having these acoustic shows online, people were really excited about them, and it just felt like we were giving people something to be excited about at a time when they were, pretty unhappy. And so we realized we could do that by releasing recordings very regularly as well. And so it sort of felt almost like a public service of sorts. The fans were like,
Yeah.
it made people happy. And we were like, well, this is something we can do. It's very easy for us. And people are glad to have it. So we were like, well, let's do it. So the plan is, we started in July, and until next July, we're going to release a new recording every other week for the whole year.
That's fantastic. And then a lot of them are, as you said before, a lot of them are live recordings. So it's kind of like you're touring in a kind of a weird, indirect kind of way. It's like this.
Yeah, some of them are live. And lots of them are, there's studio recordings. There's, of brand new songs that no one's ever heard. There's live recordings that are acoustic, just me by myself in this, in front of an audience. There's full band recording. So it's kind of a fun assortment of stuff. And, it gave me an opportunity to create a bunch of things that, like, without the stress of like having to figure out the context of the album, or so. Like, this isn't an album. It's just, I'm just sharing a bunch of stuff with people. And, it just feels like very, like it's very easy. It's not like a stressful, like we're not like trying to get a bunch of press about it. I think when you make an album, there's like a kind of a weight to that. And that's not like, I couldn't imagine adding one more stressful thing to my life at this point. So that's not what, this is a very easy, no pressure thing for me. It allows us to connect, with the community. And I think that, because I think being a touring artist and making albums and releasing music, one of the parts of it that is most important to me certainly is the community of people that we've built, building that community, maintaining that community, and like their relationship to me and my music, and their relationships to each other. And so I feel like, what we've been doing this year is really cultivating things for that community, so that even though I'm not running around on tour and, creating the live experience, we're still giving them something to engage them both with my music and with each other. And that's been rewarding. It's been good to be able to do that, because I know at first we were all kind of sitting at home scratching our heads like, okay, so I can't go to Spokane. What do I do now?
Yeah. Well, this is kind of the thing about this. The sort of one of the sort of plus sides of the way things have gone this year is that it gives you that freedom to kind of, as you say, just release single tracks and just doing stuff and just putting it out as you see fit. And this kind of, a lot of people have got into this regular single releases, and sometimes people are just recording a song there and then, like writing it, recording it, releasing it, and it's a capture of a moment in time. So you can do that as well, which is great. I mean, do you have a home studio set up where you can do all this stuff, where you can record yourself?
Yeah, I mean, right now, the stuff that I've been releasing has been things that like we were done with, except for this, or like, we didn't finish putting this in it. So rather than like making recordings from scratch, we've been largely mixing things that weren't mixed, or I call a friend and say, hey, can you put a harmony in this? We didn't finish putting harmonies in it, and they're doing it at home. Like, so I haven't been recording at home, for what we're doing now, but actually, what I'm doing next, we're just going to use our home rig. And because we can't get everybody together in the studio, it just seems dangerous and impractical, especially in Nashville right now, as our numbers continue to escalate. What we're going to do is Paul Hammer, who's one of my principal collaborators and one of my closest friends, we're going to move into a house together next summer and we're going to work there. Because we can't go into the studio with everybody as we generally do. Usually there's a whole bunch of us and people come in and come out. And instead of that, I've been writing music alone in my house. And so then we're going to come together and just the two of us, I think pretty much alone, make the entire record, because it's just the way that we generally have worked over the course of my career. It's just not practical right now. Yeah. So we just decided, to do something that for us is like pretty unconventional, and just make the next one just the two of us.
That's quite exciting though as well. At the same time, it's kind of like a little adventure, doing things just the two of you and doing things in a different way. There must be something that you're really looking forward to doing it. It's just doing things just kind of completely new.
And honestly, for me, in the last number of years, like, since I got married and since I had a child, the process of spending lots and lots and lots of time sequestered in the studio and like waking up and going there and staying there until I'm like ready to go home and go to sleep, that's become increasingly kind of a slog for me. It's like, because even if you bring my daughter to the studio to say hello, it's like she's 2 years old. She's gonna burn the place down. She's when we were finishing the last album, she'd pop in the studio. She's a little kid. She's a little one, so that's not an easy thing. And so
No.
the idea of working in an environment where my family can be around, and it's less of like there's so many things as an entertainer where it's like you leave your family, you do the thing you do, and then you come home. It's like you go to make a record, you go away, and then you come back. You go on tour, and then you're gone. And so this feels like increasingly that has felt kind of unnatural to me and uncomfortable and not something I enjoy. And so it's cool, the prospect of being able to be around my family and not be sequestered in a studio for months. That feels like just more reasonable to me, like in terms of like how I live my actual life. So that's really exciting as well, because I know making the last record, there were times where I was like, it kind of made me miserable because I was just like, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd leave, and I'd come home and my daughter would already be asleep. I'm like, this is not the right balance for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 3 kids myself, and I've kept live music going for that reason. I could. My wife's a nurse, so she's been on the front line of this thing this year.
Oh wow!
But my kids are my youngest is 7 now. My oldest is 16. But when they were younger, music was great because I was able to be home and be the ones changing nappies and doing school runs and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of had the best of both worlds doing that. But yeah, I mean, daytime studio work you have to do long hours to get the work in. So to find a way to do that hand in hand with your family has to be the way forward. Absolutely.
Yeah, it feels, for me, I understand, there are other people that have their own processes. Like I don't think that this is necessarily the right thing for everybody, but for me, it just feels like right now with where I am in my life, it feels like it'll be easier. I'm sure there's going to be problems that I don't foresee with working, with my family, kind of close at hand. But right now it feels pretty ideal.
Yeah, just cross those bridges when you come to them, I think. And I think that's one thing I think that's happened with 2020. Everyone's sort of innovating and finding new ways to do everything that we do.
Absolutely.
And it's like it just has to be there's just necessity involved in that, and just having to find the way that works best for you. And there is no one way. So you're right to say just this works for you, go for it. Absolutely.
And I've watched, some of my friends who spend a lot of time on the road, and they're kind of in the building stages of their careers. A lot of those people have realized that they're more able to spread their music and generally to reach people when they are not touring. And that's something they never had time to consider because they always, it's like if you grew up when I grew up, it's like you were taught you got to get in the van. You got to go. Yeah, and even now for me, it's like, it's like, I get in that bus and I go out there and we're doing it. Part of the thing in my mind as part of my job is like, go get in front of the people. But in practice, we access so many more people via the internet, of course, with my music than we do when we go on tour. It's like, it's an interesting thing, and to kind of wrap your mind around that there are ways at home to reach people that are just as significant or more so than what you can do by dragging your behind all over the world.
Well, this is kind of what we've been doing. That's kind of how Switchbox was formed. Really, we're basically all people that lost their jobs through COVID, through the pandemic. Me being a musician and other guys working in different sectors. We decided to try to build a platform for people to discover new music and for established artists to help to build that platform. So we have a mixture of established and brand new artists. So the idea is that we're all kind of sharing this kind of and just providing a platform for the arts and an outlet for the arts. And it's So it's been really great for that, you know, and learning more about other people's process has helped me. From this, I'm going to be doing things completely differently going forward because I've learned so much from different people, and it's brilliant hearing everybody's stories, you know. But you have your own label, don't you?
Yes. So,
So you can do
uh,
things exactly how you want to do them as well, which is even great,
yeah,
even better.
yeah, we're I always tell people it's like they're obviously the most incredible thing about us owning the label. So Blair, who is my business partner, she's my manager. Blair runs the label. She's my wife also, and so she runs a label, and then that we have there's a handful of other people who work with her full time. And then now one interesting component, by the way, of the changes in the world is our interns are scattered around, because we used to only hire interns that could come into the office. Well, now nobody comes into the office.
Yeah,
She works out of the office alone, and the whole staff is working remote. So one of our interns is in the Carolinas. Like they're scattered out there in the world, because it doesn't matter that they can't come in,
yeah, yeah.
and because nobody can. And so anyway, so yeah, so with us controlling, I write the songs, I produce the records, we own the label, we own my publishing, kind of being a one-stop shop. It takes out all the middlemen, all the gaps between the artist and the audience. I don't have those. And we're
Right.
lucky in that we're not dependent on some kind of like tastemakers. It's not like some people whose careers are driven by the press or something,
Yeah,
like the press adulation and positive reviews. It's like, for me, it's like, of course it's always flattering if people say nice things and people write nice things, but it's like it's not really a driver of the consumption of my music. Like, really, we just have this like grassroots thing that we foster, and we work to continue to drive, and to feed, and so that's been a real blessing, because we just can kind of do whatever. Like, it's like I create art, and then we release the pieces of that art that we feel like will connect with the people who care about the music. And a lot of the other hoop jumping through that people have to do in the entertainment business, I'm lucky that we don't have to do that.
would you have any advice for musicians that want to try to set this kind of thing up? Because it has to be the way forward for artists, because labels, or certainly the major labels, are kind of less and less important in the chain, as you've just described. This is kind of your model is kind of the future of like direct to audience. Do you have any advice for musicians trying to get to this position where you are now?
Well, I would say, first of all, I believe that there's absolutely still value in major labels. No person in the world has climbed to the top of the mountain yet and become like a honest to goodness household name without a label. Like, you don't get to be Lizzo by doing what I do. Like, that's not, you're not going to get those kinds of opportunities. And I mean, and even things like, in general, when you look at people who are nominated for Grammys, as for instance, I'm a voter. I'm a believer in a lot of the work that the Academy does. I I participate, so of course I believe in it. And when you look at the people that are getting nominated for the primary awards at the Grammys, in general, they are people that are signed to major labels because they have access to all the stuff that you need to win those awards. It's like, and it's not like a conspiracy, it's just, those
Yeah.
are the biggest, most powerful companies sign these artists. They put a lot of resources into them. They make them very popular, and then they promote them so that they can win these awards. So I think, I just always want to enter. I feel like being like the poster child for the indie thing. It's like, I want to tell people, if you find a place where, like a major label believes in you and wants to put resources into helping you, mazel tov, go get it. But in terms of doing what we do, I think one of the things that you have to recognize is that it's a business. And so, you're living at the intersection of art and commerce. And so you have to, it's like I always say this, like I create for myself and I edit for my audience. It's like what we put out into the world, we're mindful of how we're going to share it with people and how we're going to sell it. It's like, so I'm not pandering. I'm not creating art based, like, I'm not like, oh man, like what can we sell, but I do think about, after I've created things, what can we sell? How can we sell it? What's the narrative that sells this? What about this makes it work for our audience? Because at the end of the day, it's like, if we don't make money at this, then then it's not a business, it's a hobby. I have to get another job. And so that's something that, like, we were kind of lucky to kind of figure out early on. We're like, I got popular. I was like kind of one of the first people to really kind of get very popular online. And so then we were like, okay, this is really neat. Like, these numbers are cool, but like, how do we turn this into money so that I don't have to, like, learn to make lattes or whatever, and so, figuring out how to get eyeballs on a project is challenging. And I think that's about, seeking people who, like, you think will have an understanding of your art you create. That's an incredible oversimplification of how to sell art to people. But that's, it's like, you got to think about what you make, who is it realistic to sell it to? Because, like, for instance, if you want to make, like, some kind of metal that no one has ever heard of, you got a new facet of metal that you want to create, like, the odds of that becoming as popular as, like, Lizzo is probably pretty small. And that's like a consideration, that it's like, if your commercial goals, like your financial goals or whatever, if your goal is to play in a football stadium, well, you probably can't make that kind of music. So you have to decide, do I want to make this kind of music, or do I want to try to play in the football stadium? And that's, like, for us, this, like, balance of, I want to make art that I believe in, and I also have to eat and pay the people who work with me. That's something that we've learned to balance the push and pull of that, which is hard. It's like, I didn't mean to be in the music business. I meant to be in the music. The business just kind of happened all of a sudden. And then my music started happening, and people started paying attention to it. And then I was like, oh man, we've got to learn how to be in the music business. And that's, I'm lucky, obviously, that, like, my wife, she was my girlfriend at that point, and she had a job in advertising. She's a business-minded, organized, incredibly intelligent, professional person. And so she was able to help in the beginning, and then gradually take over, leading our business, because it's a business. And I would say, like, being professional, being on time. I stole this from the guys from Death Cab for Cutie, but we put the punk in punctual. We are always, we treat it like it's work. So if we have something, if we're supposed to be there, we're there. It's like, it's not cute to try to rock star people in this day and age. It's like, don't show up late, don't show up wasted. This is your job. And if you get successful enough that other people will handle all your stuff, again, like, do whatever you want, like, live the dream. But if you're going to do it yourself, then it's just like if you're running a bakery. Like, if you don't show up and make the muffins and then sell the muffins, people can't buy the muffins. You're going to go out of business. It's, so that's, like, it sucks to have to think about it as work and a business. But
but being the person that creates the art and makes the business decisions, you can always make sure that you don't sell the art out. If you don't sell out that side of it, so you're always mindful that you're not gonna cut corners with what the art is, just for the business. Yeah. So that's one good thing, because if someone else is handling that, a record label, they may not care. They might not give a shit about what about what you're creating as much as they are the music. So it's good to have that, to be that person, because then you can really make sure that balance is right.
Everyone is compromising to some degree. And so the question is, like, what compromises feel acceptable and reasonable to you? Because, like, nobody gets, I don't think, at least, no, I can't imagine people getting into the arts to make money, because it's next to impossible to get to a place where you make a lot of money in the arts. Like, if you want to make a lot of money, learn to design apps, And so it's like, I think that as an artist, it's very important to keep in mind that, like, compromise where it's necessary. Of course, we all do. It's that's you have an idea inside of your head and you have to make it manifest in the world. There's inherently compromise involved in that. It's like, I can't play all the instruments in an orchestra. So when I have an idea that involves an orchestra, I inherently have to try to take the idea and share it with people, and then they have to do it. It's inherently not going to be exactly what it started as in your head. So there's compromise all the time, but it's important, I think, to be mindful that the compromise is stuff that you can stand behind, because at the end of the day, nobody is like, man, like that A&R guy, he really messed up that album. Like, nobody talks about that. Or like, the president of such and such a label really, missed that one. No. It's your face on the cover of the record. And so it's your name, or the name of your band, that's like it. You own that forever. Like if a producer makes a mistake and an album is bad, they're not going to stop getting to be a producer. But if you compromise within your, like in your art in a way that makes it bad, like you're going to get blamed for it. And that's something, it's like at the end of the day, I think that's something that's important to keep in mind. It's like, only make compromises that you can live with and that you believe in, that you can stand behind, because probably you'll be blamed for them.
You mentioned about before when you you were one of the first people to really get big on the internet, and now this is A Drop in the Ocean is a song of yours which just keeps having new lives, doesn't it? The song that was written. But well, you can tell us a bit more about it. I'm not going to tell you about your own song, but you sort of co-wrote it with the guys back sort of around your college years or something, wasn't it, or just post college years? And it's a song that has just served you so well over the years. So first of all, tell us a little bit about the creation of that song, and then a little bit about how all its different guises and forms and lives that it's had.
So I wrote that about 15 years ago or so now. It's like something either the fall of 2005 or the beginning of 2006. I can't remember. And my roommate at the time, Zach Berkman, Zach is, one of my oldest friends. He was my roommate until I was roommates with my wife. He officiated my wedding. So he was like my brother. And so I had some of the parts to the song, and I had him come in my room where I had the piano, and I was like, here, and I played him all the parts that I had, and he sat down, and I was like, what would you play for the verse part of this? And he sat down and he went, dum, dum, da, da, like the instrumental theme of this song. He sat down and played that straight through the first time, and then I was like, okay, show me one more time. He played it again, and then he like got up and left the room. We had no idea that this thing was special in comparison to any of the other stuff that I was creating at the time. And then I was like kind of building an audience online. It was like the beginnings of social media. Like social media didn't have a name yet. And so I was in a band. I was not creating this kind of music really at all. I was like kind of live. It was much more of like a kind of Southern rock sort of thing. And I was fronting the band and playing electric guitar and ripping solos. And we were taking turns singing lead. Like the band, we were kind of like doing that. And so I was the band was called The District. And so I was in this band called The District. Yeah. And so I just started with some of these recordings that I was making, and I started putting them online and put my name on them, I made a MySpace because it, was like, I was going to say, was
this the MySpace days? Yeah.
Yeah. And then with like, by the end of like, towards October of 2007, the first Monday, my like solo MySpace page got 100 plays, and the next Monday it got 1,000, and the next Monday it got 10,000, and the next Monday it got 100,000, and I was like the most popular unsigned artist in the world. It was just like, and I think it was, we released a handful of these acoustic, and very strict recordings because they were just meant kind of like as demos in the beginning, and that really popped off. And then I had a friend who was one of the first hires at TuneCore, the digital distribution company, where, you just pay a fee and they put your music on. At that time, it was, just like iTunes and a handful of stores. And so he was like, oh, you should put your music on there. That's how you can sell the music. And so I did that. Thank you, Jake Smith, by the way, because, like that's how I bought the pants I'm wearing now.
That's how I bought the pants I'm not wearing now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're sweatpants, but I do like my legs are covered currently. My wife made it very clear that I had to I couldn't do this bottomless. I had to
This is standards.
Something on.
This is standards.
Yeah. Very low standards. Yes, they're very
but
low.
Standards nonetheless.
Yeah. As my father says, we got a lot of class. It's all low, but we got a lot of class. And so anyway, I put the music on there, and it was cultivating the audience. I was actively doing outreach. I was fostering this grassroots movement that for years building up to that moment when it tipped over. And then we started selling music. First a few thousand a month, then 10,000. These are individual digital downloads, and then it was 10,000, and then it was 50,000, and then it was 100,000. And then before you know it, it was we had sold many millions of digital tracks. And I went and signed a major label deal for a short period of time. I got out of that because they didn't add any value. And ever since then, we've just been doing it independently. I own all the recordings. I own all the publishing. And so now, obviously we've put out an immense amount of music. There's probably, I don't know, 12 hours or something, 15 hours worth of music on Spotify and all of Apple Music and everything. But we got really lucky. I had a large catalog when streaming started, and I had a few songs that were very popular in A Drop in the Ocean and One Grain of Sand and some of these other songs, but I wasn't a household name. And so people were able to, just as they had been doing with digital singles, they've been telling their friends, oh, check this out. And people would buy it for $1. Well, now, they could go on Spotify in the beginnings of Spotify. And if they said, oh, have you heard of this guy? And they'd say no. Well, they're like, oh, listen to this song. And then instead of just listening to that one song and having to pay $1 to own it, they would listen to all the songs I had ever recorded. So, if you were a kid who had your first EP out or something at that point, well, then people could only listen to 4 or 5 songs. But I had, 6 albums or 8 albums at that point because I was just making a lot of music. And so I was kind of when streaming came, I was sort of tailor-made for streaming because I was big enough, popular enough that I had these songs that people would spread out, but I was unknown enough that there were many, many people in the world who hadn't heard the music. And so it kind of that was where it really went crazy. It was selling a few million singles is cool and it was really helpful, but now across all these platforms, we've I think now it's 4 years ago or something, we crossed 1 billion streams across all platforms.
That's
and
crazy.
I think I haven't looked in a long time because the numbers are so stupid that it's I don't know. I don't pay attention anymore, but it's I know that it was a number of years ago that we crossed 1 billion streams across all platforms. And that one, the original, demo version of A Drop in the Ocean, has 180 million plays on Spotify or something. And there are weeks where that version of the song gets 1 million streams still, individual weeks. And
That's
it's
crazy.
been out. I put that song out. I think we workshopped it and the final version of the song, maybe in the end of 2006 or the beginning of 2007. So it came out 13 years ago. And it just kind of keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's cool. Obviously we've done a lot, in terms of, I've released at least one studio album every year since 2004, between my own work and the district's work. And it's some years it's been much more than that. So we've worked hard, we've done a lot to grow the audience. I've been on tour for, the bulk of my adult life. And, we've done a lot of work, but it's definitely having a hit like that is sort of, it's pretty magical. I will say it's it doesn't make any sense. It's it's not oh, well, this label promoted it at the radio or, whatever. There was no big moment. It just kind of gradually continued to grow.
Organic kind of thing. But it seems like you were just in the right place and you capitalized on those things at the right times. So the idea of really capitalizing on MySpace when it was first there, and then that meant you were ahead of the curves at every single step up into and then streaming. As much as people can complain about it now, and it is quite hard for people coming through and starting off now to get heard on streaming services. it seems that you were just in the right place. So that you had enough material at that point to really kind of capitalize on that. So because you hear a lot of Spotify gets a lot of bad press. So it's good to hear some positive stories about it, that it is possible for it to be a success.
Yeah, here's the thing. When Spotify first started, I realized immediately why it was a value. And here's what made it work for me and made it so obvious for me. Nobody made any money from music in Sweden for a very long time because they were way out in front of the piracy train. And so when I first got paid from Spotify the first time, I was very confused because I was looking and I asked my friend, I was like, what, my buddy who worked at TuneCore, I was like, what is this? Like, and he was like, oh, it's from Sweden. And I was like, this is money for music in Sweden? And that's like, no one, you couldn't get anybody to give you money for music from there because they had converted almost exclusively to piracy. So I saw pretty immediately, I'm like, if this can make money come out of Sweden, then it can make real money come out of anywhere. And like, obviously, just like everybody else, it's like, do I wish that they paid more per stream? Absolutely. Like I got 500 million plays on one of these platforms. I'm not that one, but another one that I got 500 million plays on before they ever paid a single cent. They didn't pay at all one of these platforms in the beginning. And I got 500 million plays and got $0. So like, is that upsetting? Of course. But for me, the numbers are obscene, obviously, of course, but it has allowed me to grow a global audience. And in places where there would have been no other way at any other time in the history of music for me to do that. Like the people in Sweden, where now my music is very popular, like those people they weren't going to buy a million single downloads, from iTunes. They weren't going to buy CDs from my website or something. It was like a cultural thing that blocked me. And now it's like, in the last number of years, like I went there and, I played, like when I go there and play in a festival, like I played before Kanye and stuff. It's like, and I'm like, I'm not Kanye, so it's we did a festival there a few years ago where I was on the same stage where, it was like me and Imagine Dragons and Lana Del Rey and Kanye. I was like, this is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Frank Ocean, I was like, this is not where my mother thinks I am right now. And so like that's the thing. I think people lamenting the streaming thing. It's like, I don't know. Like you don't generally see people that have built an audience via streaming or created substantial revenue complaining about it. It's often like people who don't have substantial consumption of their music, or people who signed record deals a long time ago who are getting middled. It's like, if Spotify is paying out whatever X amount, $3,500 per million streams, and you're getting $50 per million streams, that means somebody is taking $3,450 from you, and it's probably because you signed some kind of deal, like a record deal, publishing deal, whatever, some management deal, some place somebody is middling you. You're getting middled, and so of course, like I would love to be paid. Like if they paid they paid us 1 cent per stream, like sometimes people say, I'm like, that would be rad for me,
absolutely,
that would be super cool. It's like, that's not going to happen. But and I think like people have unrealistic expectations of what these platforms can do, and I think like finding a middle ground though between like they're tech companies also. That's another thing that I think people need to remember. Like these are not music companies. They're selling the idea that they can create a large audience and that people can access them. Like just like almost everything else on the internet, they're selling like your data and your access to you as a consumer is what they're selling. So like it doesn't matter if an internet company, like what kind of widget a tech company is selling. Like at their core, these are tech companies, and they're worth so much more than entertainment companies. It's like a rich person in the entertainment business is like a joke in tech. You know, like the WhatsApp guy got whatever $19 billion from Facebook when he sold his you know, so something obscene like that. It's like you could buy the whole entertainment business for $19 billion. Like that's you know, and that's like one app that another tech company bought. And so it's I think that's a thing that people kind of, artists especially, don't consider. It's like, though none of these like they're not music companies, they're technology companies, and so they also don't care. So it's like that's a tough thing. It's like you know, like I think trying to like align as artists, trying to align our interests with the interests of a company that's like worth many billions of dollars and who doesn't really need us. That's hard. Like inherently, like we're, you know, like, because you know, every one of us, if we got mad and took our music off, like some other people would be there and they would still figure it out. So
this is kind of the thing that we kind of, when people were boycotting Spotify, and I said that's all very well for someone like, you know, Madonna or something, someone huge that just already has their audience there, has been going for years to boycott it, but someone like me trying to self-release and everything, it's not going to make any dent in Spotify if I keep my music off there. Do you know what I mean?
You know, and I wrote also, like, I wrote an article, I don't know now how many years ago this is now, maybe like 6 years ago, 8 years ago, when Taylor Swift was taking her music off of Spotify. I was like, here's the thing. It's important that established artists like put their music in these places, and that we change the behavior of people, because we don't want to scatter these consumers to the breeze and have them go places where zero revenue is generated and they're consuming music. Sort of like what happened when the majors squashed Napster, because what happened was the music consumers were in one place primarily at that point that were pirating music. And what we did was we took a sledgehammer, and they were like a watermelon, and we smashed, you know, the watermelon with a sledgehammer. And so Napster, instead of all this consumption being in one place, spread everywhere. And so people were all over the place consuming music. You know, music piracy spread from there. It didn't get rid of music piracy. It just got music piracy everywhere. And so I thought, like, and I believe this, it's like, I think that if you're a powerful artist, the most important thing you can do is like advocate with, you know, with these people, like use your leverage to make it so that these tech platforms that where people consume music, that they'll hear your voice if you're an iconic artist in a way that they won't hear the voices of the rest of us. And I think that's a way to create value for the future, because like the next Beyonce, the next Taylor Swift, the next Adele, those people are going to need the revenue that they generate from these streaming platforms in order to be in business. You know, like it'll be imperative for those people, the future versions of those folks that you know, like to be able to generate revenue from streaming, because people aren't going to buy digital downloads. People aren't going to buy CDs. Like most people aren't buying records on vinyl. It's like, if your fan base, like my fan base, does buy records on vinyl, and that's really cool. But most people don't do that. And like by far the bulk of the consumption of my music is people streaming it within these platforms. So it's like, we've got to figure out how to do business with these people, because you're not going to change the behavior of the bulk of the music consumers in the Western world. Like that's not a realistic option. And so I think it's like incumbent upon these iconic artists to like leverage their power and their relationships with these companies to speak on the, you know, behalf of the rest of music creators, because that's the only way they're gonna listen. Like that's it. That's the only way to make any change. Like us, like one person with the, you know, a small audience and 10 other people with small audiences like complaining in a circle on Twitter is not, like, that doesn't change that. And I don't want to say complaining, but like, you know, discussing this in a circle, it doesn't, that doesn't change anything. But like Beyonce or whatever, Adele, you know, those are, you know, big iconic artists can make those kinds of changes, because like the executives at these companies have no choice but to at least entertain anything that people like that say. And, you know, that's kind of my take on it.
It's a fascinating debate, and it's a great point of view that you put across there, and I think it's very important. and what you advocate for there is fantastic. And so we'll just have to try and see if we can get this interview into Taylor Swift's inbox and get her to start doing something about it.
The last thing I want to do in the world is attempt to tell her what to do. Clearly, she knows better than I do. She's doing fine, but it's more like a call for help. Anybody?
Yeah.
Like,
I think
it's
I think it's a very important point that you make, and I think it's actually it's one of the biggest problems facing the artistic industry, any artistic industry, is finding audience and getting your voice heard and finding your place within
and then
getting
paid for that.
And getting paid for that, exactly. That's the biggest thing facing us. So hopefully we can get to a place where this can be possible, and you sort of feel like change has got to come at some point, and has got to swing in the direction of the artist at some point, because
in a glass half full situation, I will say this: like, I have made the entirety of my living from the consumption of my music for now, like almost all of my adult life, like since I was 24 or something. Now I'm 37 years old. So like for a very long time, I've made all my money from the consumption of my music. I grew an audience myself, via all of these platforms, and have made a living doing this. And it's become a family business. My wife and I work in it. We employ a number of people, and we have do I have like the dream that I set out for when I was a kid? Like, well, no, I'm not like an iconic artist playing in an arena. But it's like, I do have a career as a musician, and have substantial consumption of my music, and I have a devoted following of people. So it is possible. I did it. I've done it, and I continue to do it every day. And so I do believe that, like, in a glass half full way, I'd like to say, like, we've done it, and so it's absolutely possible. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of luck. Like a combination of working very hard and getting struck by lightning, basically. But it does happen, and it happened to me. So fantastic. That's a glass half full thing.
That's good. That's good to end on a positive out of that, because it's very important to keep positive. And also, you're saying going into next year, you're going to be continuing to release regular music every other week.
Every other week,
getting right up until next summer. So that, I suppose, that's kind of taken up all your plans. Is there anything else on the horizon that we could keep an eye out for?
I started a Patreon so that we could kind of like share even more stuff, which is pretty absurd considering that I am releasing something new every other week, like to the general public. But, I started Patreon because I have a lot of stuff bubbling over. So there's more recordings coming out through that. There's, I'm cooking sometimes, or sharing the recipes that I've been working on, because that's another thing that we do here. We have like a test kitchen. We're always like trying out something new, because I'm trapped in my house wearing sweatpants. I might as well put on an apron, and do something useful. And so, that's kind of been like another big focus of mine, certainly, is like, growing the community and like engaging the people within the Patreon, because it's like just another place that we can like give people lots of stuff to entertain them and keep them engaged, like while the world is a bummer a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I'm just writing towards the next record. So I'll be here sitting in this room at the piano next to me, trying to get the next record written.
So just you in sweatpants writing songs for the foreseeable. So where can people go? Is it patreon.com/Ron Pope? Is it as simple as that, or what's the?
I don't know.
What's your
That's
address?
A good question.
Yeah.
What the link is there.
We'll find the link. We'll find the link and we'll put it into the description. That's what we'll do for you.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you.
And where else can people find? What's another good place for people to find you? Are you on? I'm assuming you're on all the social media.
As my grandmother says, I am in the internet. I am in all those. Everywhere that you go on the internet, I am there watching you. So you if you look for me, you'll find me.
Fantastic. Right, we do. I do a dream gig question now, where it's basically, this is a fantasy gig. It seems a good time during 2020 to kind of just get into our heads and have a bit of a fantasy dream about things. So you're opening, the someone on after you, and the someone headlining. who are those other two acts? They can be from any time in history, from any point in history. They can be alive or dead. You don't have to worry about selling the show. You're not promoting it. It's just purely for your enjoyment.
Okay. All right. So and I have to play first.
You're opening, and there's someone after you.
Okay. Since I'm gonna go first, the band would be second.
Yeah.
And since I got to pick, Bob Dylan will also be playing some with them.
Yeah.
So it'll be like
fine.
one of those, the
Last
band and
Waltz
Dylan
style.
tours, put them together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then it's the Stones, because like, of course, but it's not like, I've seen the Stones now. That's wonderful. I want to see, like, I want Mick to be 24. Like, I want to see, like, or however old they are when Exile is happening, like with Mick Taylor in the band. So it's like really, like peak era Bobby Keys, like that era of the Rolling Stones is who I want to be to lead. And if I could be at any gig, it would be the Last Waltz, of course.
Yes. Okay. Fantastic. And we always do a recommendation on the show, so this is your chance to recommend whoever you'd like for just music people need to know. So who would you recommend?
The people who have been opening for me in the when I was going places and doing things: Emily Scott Robinson, Caroline Spence, Michaela Ann. Those are three that have opened for me in the last, whenever I was playing music, that are all wonderful. So Caroline Spence, Emily Scott Robinson, Michaela Ann, they're all wonderful. Nikki Bloom is singing all over my most recent record, and she's incredible. So those are all people I love. Lydia Luce is also on the new record. So all ladies who live in Nashville. That's like my favorite genre of music right now, is like women songwriters who live within 5 miles of my house.
It's very specific. And what's your label called?
Brooklyn Basement Records.
And there's other acts on there people can check out, or is there another?
Absolutely, there are. There's a bunch of them.
So people can. So what we'll do is we'll put the links to all of these things in the description. People can check them out.
Wherever, probably over there, somewhere down there.
All the way along there, and we'll put a link to your Patreon and make sure everyone can keep in touch with what you're doing. Listen, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you, because this is kind of what you've achieved is just what people have to do now. It's kind of like what bands starting out now, artists starting out now, have to self-release, because sort of practicalities in the business these days, that is what it is. So it's great to hear your take on what you did, how you did it, and advice that you've given. So thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you, and I'd love to stay in touch and try and get a few more of your pearls of wisdom over the coming months and years. Yes, definitely, and hopefully, the world stops burning, and we'll see you on tour in the not so distant future. If you get to come over to the UK, then stop in and say hello. Definitely, you stop in and you come visit me. I'll be there for sure. Fantastic. I want to come and see these female artists that live within 5 miles of your house. It sounds like a scene. That's a great scene. It is. It's like you can walk into the grocery store down the street from my house and like bump into somebody who's made like the best record that you've heard all year. You're just like, oh my goodness, and they're all my friends. It's crazy. It's a trip. Fantastic. This city is nuts. So excellent. As soon as the world allows, I'm going to be on the first plane in Nashville. But thanks, Ron. Thanks so much. Good luck with everything, and stay safe and well. Stay out of trouble. I'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.